Hello, and welcome to Superb Woman Sundays at 7. I'm your host, Janet Neal, the founder and queen bee at the Superb Woman Incorporated. I'm so happy you joined us. And boy, are you in for a treat tonight. My guest this week is Sonia Hamlin. Oh my goodness. I am so grateful to have met Sonia. She is a dynamo, and you'll be able to hear her amazing story in just a minute. But before we get to her, let me tell you a little bit about the Superb Woman and my beliefs that started the whole thing. I believe that women can change this world when we realize it. So many of us have no idea how powerful we innately are. And so many of us give away our power. And so the Superb Woman was formed to help women to let go of the belief that they have to be a superwoman. A superwoman is all about do. It's all about pleasing somebody else or some societal norm or a goal that you have tried to reach that, may I just say, is unsustainable. A superb woman takes the time to sit back, to really evaluate what her goals are, what her values are, what makes her innately her, where her power is, and then crafts and lives a life that takes advantage of all those amazing gifts and puts wonderful, amazing, powerful energy back out into the world. And I don't know about you, but I think we all need it. So I have been so blessed on my journey to have met wonderful examples of superb women. And that's why I started this show, to be able to bring them to you, so that you too can have a mentor, somebody who has been there, done that you can look up to, just like I do. And Sonia is one of those people. I met Sonia, funny story, I met Sonia at a networking event, and she was sitting on a couch, and I just said to Sonia, "What's interesting in your life?" And then she went on and started telling me. Well, I'm going to let her tell the stories now. So Sonia, how did you go from being a 5-year-old who got a scholarship to Juilliard to being an actress like you are today, and in between getting 5 Emmys and teaching at Harvard? Tell people how this all came about.
Let me cut down on the Emmys right away. It was only 2. They're very strict about that.
I see.
Well, there were 12 careers in between. And understanding your audience, I think it might be interesting for them to know what led to and how I sort of handled a lot of things that have to do with fear and the surprise of suddenly being in a place where there were no women before, because, as you can see, I'm old enough to have done it in the earlier days when every job I had was a job that I created. There had not been the job, or for sure not the woman, or in any position of authority or, leadership. So the story is, let me go quickly through it. Yes, I'm 5 years old and I was playing the piano and started to study at Juilliard. But I had an older sister who was also playing the piano 7 years better. And so I moved into dance, which was something I really adored. And went from dance through dancing with Martha Graham's company, marrying a Bostonian and moving to Boston, where Radcliffe and Harvard discovered that the woman who was to run the entire dance department had gotten very sick and wasn't going to manage to do it. And so I suddenly became chairman of the dance department at Radcliffe and Harvard. I was 19 years old. I was living in Marblehead, Massachusetts, which is a small suburb, and I come from New York City, from the Bronx. So that all by itself was an enormous transition, as well as sort of breathing hard and thinking, Harvard, for Pete's sake, look where you are, which was very exciting. And many things developed. I went through having 3 children, 3 marvelous boys, and moving on to having my own dance company and choreographing and creating materials for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to show in the schools. And all of a sudden, television called and said, come do this for us, because they were going to lose their license because they didn't have enough cultural events. And so they allowed me to do whatever it was that I wanted to do, and I was having a splendid time. I wanted very much to open the world, particularly when the kids are younger, so that they don't hear about art, or as they say in Boston, art, and think, oh, that's not for me. I wanted to show kids how much there is to find within yourself, because you can express yourself in different ways than only actual words. And so I went to WGBH, which is the PBS station, and created Meet the Arts, which won a whole lot of prizes, and I was thinking pretty good. And my kids are all growing up with this artsy lady and a very stable husband. The next thing that happened was I finished that and thought, I want to be the cultural reporter on the news, so that every night between all the fires that you hear about and all the corruption that you hear about, in the middle there's going to be, did you ever notice this? It's right here in town. And that became a big thing. And it was fulfilling my dream, which I'd had since I was a child, because I came from a very rich ethnic background. I spoke several languages and was accustomed to seeing people from all over the world and knowing one important thing. They're just like me. We all care about the same things. We want love. We want to grow up and find something to do that really tells us that we are in the world, that can make a difference in one way or another. And that was the goal. I just kept on going. And the next thing that happened was the television station, which was the NBC station in Boston, asked me to do a morning talk show and said, Sonia, we really love you on the news. But this is very easy, because who's home? Dodo birds. They're women with their children, and they'll like some recipes and hairdos. We'll have a star on from time to time. It's easy, and you can still keep doing the news. And I said, no. But Sonia, you'll be a star. I said, no. That is not what I'm about. That isn't at all what I'm about. I showed the museum last week, and 3,000 people went to see it. They'd never been inside, and suddenly they found what a terrific thing. So that was not for me. Came home, told my husband, and listen, it matters what you tell your husband and how you tell it. Because I said, did you want to hear something ridiculous? They want me to do the morning show, and it's for dodo birds, and they're going to just do it with makeup and hairdo. I'll cook a little something, No, he said, no. Of course you don't want to do that. You go back and tell them if they will let you hire an all-women staff, producer, director, and assistants, and program what you want to. We'll do it for 3 months. We won't sign a contract. See if we like it. If they like it, if I like it. And if not, I'll just go back to the news. That comes from the fact that he was exposed to the business world for a long time and understood a lot more about how men think in terms of, what do I get committed to? Maybe I could find a new audience. This might be a good idea. And so I learned a big thing. I went back terrified and said it all like, and just recited what he told me. And they said, fine. And that show went on for a very long time. It was called the Sonia Hamlin Show. It was in Boston, and it was on 5 days a week for an hour each morning. And what we managed to do was very original kinds of programs, because they let us, you see. And we did a whole thing about very obese people. This was years before they did it now. And we did a whole week on sex. This was in Boston. This was early on. We showed the birth of a baby.
Wow.
We got a woman who had already had a child. Her doctor was willing and so forth. And we did it right there.
Wow.
And everybody was just, the cameras were shaking because the guys were crying so much. It was an enormous thing. And all the stars that I had, and I had many, you should hear the list. What was interesting to me was, what else besides being a star are you? And how do you handle the things we have to handle? Like disappointment and failure, and you can't figure out what to do with your kids, and your mother's driving you crazy, and all of that. So those were the questions that I asked, and got remarkable answers from people who are 3D, but you never hear that part. You only hear about their next movie. And so what happened then was I kept on going, and was always interested in politics. And I began to realize that we become such a nation of specialists that doctors, lawyers, politicians, scientists, people we really need to hear from and understand, were really terrible on the air because they talked about that. When I knew the women at home were interested in this, and my kids, and how do I fix my life?
Right.
So I began thinking about why. Why would they would go right off into the stratosphere with very exotic words we didn't understand. And then I realized that they are not trained to do this at all. They only get more specialized with bigger words and only talk to other people like that. And so in no time at all, they were forgetting about us or assuming that we're too dumb. We won't get it. We don't understand their stuff. And I thought, I could teach that. I really could teach that. And I would love to try. And the second thing that happened, the fates moved in. I ran the first women's conference in South America and sat on the plane going to Colombia, South America, next to a man who introduced himself as the professor of law at the Harvard Law School. Well, here's my chance. He was all excited to talk to the television lady. I was all excited to talk to him about, what do you think of this idea? Well, we had a long time to do it, and he was very interested. What would you teach? And I went off into a whole thing about, I knew what we needed to learn, and get down to Colombia, and he said, when we get back to Boston, I'd like to see you, and I'll introduce you to the dean. No sooner said than done. Back I came, lunch we had, and the dean said, I love it. And here's another lesson. But, he said, I want you to now come with me to the office, and I will play a tape of a lawyer doing something in the courtroom, and you critique it. Now, I had thought if I ever did this, I would then go learn about the law so that I could recommend what you could do without doing anything wrong and illegal, actually. And this was the lesson. Improvise. Stay with it. And so I said, if you tell me where we are in the case and tell me what the lawyer wants to accomplish, I can tell you what the audience, meaning the jury's reaction would be. Because then I brought it back into the field that I did know about, you see. And all of you could too. In a minute you'd watch it on television and you'd know, oh, he's so boring. First thing that happened, we turned off the sound. He said, turn off the sound? I said, yeah. 55% of all decisions are made on body language. That's the biggest thing that happens. Turn it on, okay? And here's the lawyer doing this. He saw it in a minute. We went back. I said, now turn on the sound and let's find out how he captures us. How does he begin it so we feel, we like to hear from this guy. And fluff, 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 off he was off this legal discussion, and we didn't know what the heck was going on. And again, I showed him what could be different about that to understand audiences better. Okay, Monday night lecture. And that moved into the fact that I became one of the first jury consultants in the country. And boy, did I learn fast. Oh, my. One of the best ways to learn, is to teach. I stayed with all kinds of seminars where I went to all the classes. And then I taught my class, and I also videotaped everybody and then critiqued them on videotape, which is pretty tough because it's hard to criticize. I'll teach you another lesson about that. Tell them first what they did that's right, so that they feel empowered to be able to change anything they did wrong. If you start with what's wrong, that's a tough thing, because they think, oh, I'm no good at this, then they can't even hear what you want them to do because they already think I'm a flop. So it's really important to know that in order to criticize, which of course I had to do with each one, and in the heart of their livelihood, and make them feel like they could fix it and they could do these things with that other piece, and teach them why. Why? So we went on from there, and I wrote 5 books, and I've done a number of things. I taught at the Kennedy School, blah, blah, blah. And then my husband had died early on, actually, and left me with the boys. I was running around the country and doing this and teaching all over the world, Oxford, Cambridge, Tokyo. And I really was thinking about what the heck else do I really want to do? And moved into a strange place with a friend who was giving a big seminar on new careers. And she said, you have to stand up and say, what would your next career be? And I just stood up like a cuckoo and said, I'd be an actress. I'm an actress. And thought, isn't that stupid? Nobody can help you with that. And sitting at my table for 4 was a producer.
Of course it was.
And in no time flat, I really got into it. I've done a great deal. Of course, it's the hardest profession in the world because everybody loves it, and people have been doing it for years. I was a latecomer, you know. But I've had a chance to do many such things. And I have talked forever, and I haven't let you ask me one question. That's what comes from being on television for a long time.
That's just fine. Well, you know, your story is so unique and so rich, and you could probably go on for a lot longer. And I know people who are watching right now are saying, "Oh, please let her." But let's just dive a little bit into who's helped you along the way. I mean, you mentioned a lot of wonderful, seemingly by chance meetings of people, but are there other people that you would say who have really helped you on your path?
You know, it starts with you. You really have to want that path, because nothing works unless you have your own passion in it. And finding the passion is something that so many of us put aside. We're told what they expect from us, what they think you should do. Everybody around you is doing this, so you should probably be doing it too. Nobody that you know does that. We better not do that after all. And what would your mother say, and so on. Mm-hmm. These are all enormous restrictions that we live with, and so we don't let ourselves find out what else we want to do. Because if you have the passion, the energy flies with you. Then there is no limit to the things you can dream up and think up. The second thing that I learned was you really need to look at the outside world and see what's happening in the world. What you loved or the job you had when you were 22, well, it doesn't fit what this world needs now. So you have to look at the world, which is what I kept doing, and seeing what isn't there that should be there. What help do they need now because all of a sudden we become so technologically involved? What else could we do to add to that picture so that we bring something unique to it, which was what I did about all the communication scene. Besides that, I had the big problem of not having a mentor because nobody was doing what I was doing. So that was a big problem. The people that I see around me who have mentors usually have it with a teacher that they hang on to, someone they met at work that they make friends with. It's okay to ask. You find a mentor very often by just asking. I never saw that. I wonder how you do that. Do you know anything about that? And next thing you know, well, let me help you. People are very willing to do that. And it helps to have somebody with more experience in where you want to go. But the secret begins with you, with finding your own passion, what you really care about from the early days when you kept discarding it, and then having the strength to go for it.
Absolutely. That's very great advice for a lot of, not just women, but for everybody who's out there. And, you know, you talked about one point that I want to go back to, about when you were doing all of this, you were one of the few women that, or the only woman that was doing this. So how did you said you had no mentors to do this,
No.
but what made you feel that you could do this in a man's world? I mean, were there people that inspired you, or what was it?
What a good question. It's because it needed to be done. That was not even a question I asked myself.
Wow.
The initial questions I think inside were, does this really need to happen? I mean, young people need to know about the arts who never have seen it, and what a difference it could make to them, hobbies they could create, the ways they could affect their own children, the places they would take them to discover, whether it's nature or whatever else they haven't normally done in daily life. And if it really needs to be done, and you care a lot about it, and you see it everywhere, and it really bothers you, you don't even question it. You only question, do you want to do this? Yeah. Do you believe in this? Yeah. Then I don't discuss the fact that I'm a man or a woman or a goose. It doesn't matter. The thing will carry you, the energy to do this thing. See, I could never sell myself as a star. I could never come in and say, I'm really good on television. You know, you really ought to have me. I would die from that. But if I come in with a new idea, I come along with the idea. If they like the idea, of course they'll tell me to do it because nobody else thought of it. They don't know how to do it. See? So it's still, I'm telling you, so much of it is inside. Dig in, find out, and let that piece come out. It'll carry you.
Excellent. Excellent. So I like to say that among the different traits of superb women, one being very comfortable in their own skin. And speaking of that, have you always been a person that's been comfortable in your own skin?
Positively not. Positively not. Not even until this day. Remember, I had an older sister, which always made me feel that I wasn't good enough, because she was 6 years better. And boy, she was better. She was very talented. Sadly, she's gone. But I never ever thought that I could really accomplish all of this. It was sort of like, it was Boston, not New York, so probably it's okay. But it's not the real thing, it's not major. So that I always felt that I was kind of second best and sort of running alongside and trying very hard. Could just, hello, I'm also here, which was pretty hard. And I never have appreciated the things I've done, which is so too bad. I was busy criticizing all the time. My mother thought that was the good motivation, was to tell me it's not good enough. So I thought it was not good enough, always. Wow. And it was so hard. I'm trying to catch up with it now that I'm in this ancient age, to really at least look back and enjoy the stuff you did. I can't even believe I did all it. Me? Her? Really? Still. So it's still there, but the thing that carried me was wanting to do it. That's it. All the stuff falls apart if you go for that, because you know in your heart this is right.
That's excellent. And shocking for me, having known you for the time that I have, that's the way that you feel. But
really.
You found that within you to make you go forward. So I'm glad you did. I'm really glad you did. Another thing I talked about with superb women is that they've learned to let go of shoulds. So you've mentioned a couple of them that you've let go of. Is there anything else, another should that you have learned to let go of in your lifetime?
Yeah. I was always Madam Perfection because, of course, my mother required that. 65 A's and 1 B+. Why did you get the B+? Did we hear about the A's? I brought up 3 sons, which was hard also because my husband had died. And my concern was, what is there true in the world that would be true for them as well as for me? And that is a place where you can get rid of shoulds. That is a place where if you want to teach them something that they can carry. I didn't know how they would grow up to be and where they would go and what they would do. I told them that the one thing I share with them is work, that you work more than you do anything else. And therefore, find something to do that you love so much that you can't wait to get up in the morning and do it again. And find something to do that's so complicated that once you know how to do it one way, you take this information and bring it over here. And then this inspires you to see something new, so you can take what you know over to something new. And I learned from my boys standing up at various birthdays, which have kept coming, and saying what they learned was not necessarily even what I told them, but what they watched me do in my life. And my oldest son said, what I learned from you is survival. Since his wife died when his children were 18 months and 5. And I did survive that and the death of my own son as well. And to move forward, to have many hard things happen. And know, put your feet on the ground. You are here. You will find a way. And look at what's important. Stay with what's important and keep going. And so, the shoulds really have gone away because they don't work. They don't work.
Right.
It's true. I was so cuckoo that I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and bake brownies so that my children should go to school with homemade brownies so that the people at school shouldn't think, well, the mother works, the poor kids, look what they're eating.
Right.
It was so important. That was a should. You should be.
Absolutely.
You should be that kind of a mother. You're cuckoo, honey. You can't do it all. And I was always testing my children, worried about that they grew up with a mother who was sort of a little strange and not doing the things that most other mummies do. One good thing. My middle son went to school and they called the roll. And they said, Hamlin, Mark Hamlin, are you Sonia Hamlin's son? Because, I was on television every day. He said, no. Came home and told me. I said, that's interesting. Why? He said, because I want to be famous on my own, not because I'm your son.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Right. That's it.
That's
So
fabulous.
it's fostering the spirit and the ability to say that what you dream up and think up inside is really worth it, worthwhile, and then to pursue it.
Wonderful. How does gratitude play in your life?
That's such an important question. Such a good one, Janet. I have a friend who, in the midst of nothing, when driving along or something, she'll say, aren't we lucky? Aren't we lucky? And I have to stop and think, what an idea. I don't think that way. Yeah, I'm busy doing the next thing, fixing the last thing. What else is... Look around us. The people in the rest of the world, those poor Syrian refugees, and, wherever you look. First of all, we got the health. That's the big deal. You protect that. That's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have family, hopefully family.
Mm-hmm.
Even if not family, then friends,
Mm-hmm.
connections, relationships, something that anchors you into the world somehow. That's so deep and important. And we get that. I have that. I saw a book. I read a book. I saw a movie. I ate something terrific yesterday. I got to keep saying that. How lucky I am. And I've also lived past most people's expectations. And how lucky I am with that as well.
That's wonderful. And so, speaking of living,
Yes.
What's next for you?
What's next for me is this. I've been toying for 4 years with writing a book dealing very much with what I've just been talking to you about. And I keep putting it off. And I keep putting it off. And I even have a name for it. I'm not going to tell you because somebody can't copyright a name. Because I want to show people what it takes to keep finding your own bliss, your own passion, and to be true to yourself, your inner heart. Not what people tell you to do, not what other people are doing. And I sort of found that out. And I'd love to put in the lessons I learned, as well as tell the stories, which are really kind of holy schmoly. I have been all over the world, all 7 continents. I have met many famous people who have been famous through history, of course, because of being on television and working on many famous cases, including O.J. Simpson for a year, and that sort of thing. So it required me to sort of call a halt somewhat and just keep a few clients and calm down. That was shocking. And I keep teaching everybody around me what it's like to get old. And the things that I used to jump up and run across the country twice in a week, of course, no problem, I have to do this besides. And now, I needed to sort of catch my breath.
Mm-hmm.
And I was acting, sure, but that's also spurts, because it doesn't play forever.
Mm-hmm.
And try to find a new me. That is, to accept, and this is a big lesson to learn, fight as hard as you can to fix the things you can fix in every corner of your life. But learn to accept what's left. To hold on to what's here and deal with it. And say again, am I not lucky? Am I not lucky? I still have. I still can. And this is a lesson that I'm teaching myself continually. I am more and more grateful for my friends, deeply, and for my family. My boys, nobody lives here. Boys and 6 grandchildren live in other places, but we always get together. Often we stay in deep touch. And that's another thing. If you leave the roots and let them really go down into the earth, then you've sort of accomplished something. You've been here for a reason. And I need to know that maybe a few new things blossomed in people's minds because I was busy teaching and running around the world.
Oh, Sonia, that is so beautiful. I want to thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for asking me. This was so dear. Thank you.
Thank you. I cannot express enough my gratitude to Sonia for being my guest today. Now you know what I was talking about my delight in meeting her and getting to know her, and I'm so glad that you've had the chance to do so as well. Here's her book, How to Talk So People Listen, Connecting in Today's Workplace, just one of her many books. And at the end of this, you're going to see a slide that will give you some information on her website and more of her books. So please check that out. Also check out my website at www.thesuperbwoman.com, and you'll find some great information. You'll see past shows. You'll see information about our new online community for women called The Tribe. Would love to have you as a part of my tribe. And I just hope to have you come back next week when we'll have just another amazing, superb woman share her story. Until then, have a superb week.